Morning folks, hope everyone is well. I don't think I'm going to have time to do a dedicated Halloween video. This might be it, so happy Halloween. So in my previous video, 2 weeks on, so the first thing to say is I've tracked this on every single project that I've been working on. Full stop. It's now making an appearance on everything. So in the marketing blurb for this, Behringer say, you know, they've tweaked some of the components, changed some of the components, swapped some of the components out or whatever. And yeah, while, you know, it's marketing blurb, I don't think it's marketing BS. I don't think it's hype necessarily, but like subjectively, it does sound really good. It does sound really good. So I don't know what the engineers did. You know, with the innards of that, does sound good. That's my opinion. So it'd probably be more truthful to say, don't regret the purchase at all. Really glad that I bought it, and for sub $200, that's, you know, kind of a no-brainer. If you've got the original, would you buy the upgrade? I mean, you've got the frequency modulation switch, which I don't think the original had. You've got the sync, which I don't think the original had, and you've got a volts per octave in there, and some changed components apparently. So it's not a huge change. Oh, and the faceplate is different. It's more genuine. It's more similar to the original Korg MS-20. So it's black with white text. The first thing that I'll say is which is, I think, is, you know, it's an MS-20 thing, and obviously this is aping an MS-20. It has both high pass and low pass filters, which are both on at the same time. So I don't have a synth that has that. So obviously the Model D has that ladder filter, but it's just like a filter. Pro 1 has its filter, but it's just a filter. I think it's the Pro 1 is a low pass filter, standard, you know, subtractive synthesis. The Wasp obviously has a very versatile filter because you can switch it between band pass, low pass, high pass. That's cool, but it is just using, you know, one filter at a time. So this obviously has its high pass and its low pass. So you could dial in. Well, you have a lot of variety that you can dial in with those two, and obviously you can also adjust the peak settings for both of the filters as well. You know, and really dial in the frequencies you're accentuating with both filters on at the same time, right? And they're really, you know, nothing to everything kind of filters. Like, well, that'd have to be there, wouldn't it? Nothing. And then. Everything. And obviously, there's two different flavors of filter, which to my ears don't sound hugely different. One might be a bit more noisy. Or not. So the different filter types, they're calling it Rev 1 and Rev 2. Maybe that's a bit of a gimmick, but I think I've been using Rev 1 all the time. Obviously, we've got the modulation creator, or which I think we'd call that the LFO. So we can dial that in as well. And obviously, we've got the two filters, we've got the two peak, you know, the resonances. So, you know, you can dial in a lot of variety just with this little section alone. So that's one thing just to flag, you know, that's quite a unique filter architecture and it's very cool. I am enjoying that. Another thing you're hearing, the envelope has a very long sort of tail light. I mean, my release settings are like at 3. I mean, there's also this hold time as well, which doesn't really seem to affect the tail. Can we take the release all the way to 0? So obviously I think the sustain level and the decay time is also going to affect that. Yeah. But to have really snappy, it can do it. But and actually for what I'm recording, those long tails are fine. And I actually quite like that. But just to be aware, the other thing that I'm noticing is the frequency of, it's called the modulation generator, but I think it's working as an LFO. Like even the setting from 0 to 1 gives you quite a big change. So I'll send it to the frequency of the oscillators. So that kind of thing. So 0 off, 1 is very, very noticeable, I'd say. Obviously we can lessen it over here. Or not. Oh well, obviously we've got, yeah, because we've got filters so as well. So we can lessen it here. But the frequency of that LFO or modulation generator is still at 1. So we've got all of this space to explore. And different shapes. That was like fully saw. I think that's a tight square. I think. And again, we can max everything out. And again, you've got that long tail. So what I'm finding is when I'm using the modulation generator, which I do want to do to record those kind of long sort of droning sounds, I'm generally around about the 1 setting. Portamento, very, very kind of extreme. I mean, to sort of insanity. I don't mind a bit of portamento, but generally I'm either having this off or maybe just at 1. Long tail. So those are the things I've noticed in the last 2 weeks. I've done one experiment with a patchbay that seemed to work. I was putting a portable radio into the external signal in. Now you will need to trigger a note on the synth for that audio to flow through the synth, similar to how it processes external audio on the Model D works. I've got a video on that. And what's cool with that is I can then put my little FM radio through these 2 filters and using the modulation generator as well to have some wacky effects. Very cool. And that's literally using 1 input on this patchbay. So I've not fully explored that yet. Okay, so after this little section, what I'll do is I'll just do a couple of examples from my studio work to sort of show you this in use. Yeah. So this is the first example I wanted just to show, and I wanted to do it as a screen grab just so I could show you the wave. So this is the K2 that I've tracked, and it's a drone, right? So it's just one note. So obviously all this variety in sound is just coming from me manipulating mostly the modulation generator, or LFO as we might understand it, and the filter, and a little bit of the waveform. So obviously this part sounds different to this part, which sounds different to this, which sounds different to this. Which sounds different to this. Which sounds different to this. And I mean, I don't know whether that's coming through on YouTube audio, but through my headphones, this thing really growls, right? Now, obviously this is pretty much the raw. Let's go back to this section. This is the raw section as I tracked it. I've got sends to Valhalla and to a reverb. Let's switch those on, or unmute them I should say. I mean, crikey, that sounds good to me. And it's, you know, purely subjective. Now, what I am also finding is I'm using a chorus a lot with this, and I'll show you why. Let's switch the chorus on. Let's go to a different part. So without the chorus, with the chorus, and just with the chorus, as we can, this is a sort of stereo field monitor, and we get a much more sort of interesting sort of stereo effect with that chorus, and obviously reverb and the Valhalla as well. So to my ears, that sounds pretty good. This is I'll give you just a second example on the screen record. Again, this bit of audio here is the K2 recording. We can hear it without the reverb, without the Valhalla, without the chorus. Again, just really thick and gloopy. Let's put the effect sends in. Lovely. Let's put the chorus in. Just nice. Now, in the mix, with a whole lot of other, there's some DX going on, there's some X station going on, there's some Z1 going on. Yeah, there's a few bits of things going on, but we'll still hear. I'll just solo it, then bring everything else in. This K2 cuts through in a mix really well. You know, great. And also my previous purchase, the old Reface DX, these, you know, that's a really interesting combination, right? The digital FM synth versus the analog K2. That I'm finding is a very pleasing combination. I just want to do one final example. This is the K2 in sort of lead mode. So I'm using my chorus, a bit of Valhalla, a bit of reverb, kind of set up again. So it sounds fine. Now also it's doubling the Pro 1. Now the Pro 1 is a very fizzy synth. So much so I've got a Moog style filter just taking off some of that top end, right, which I could probably even go a bit further down with that. So you take the fizziness of the Pro 1 or the, you know, the sequential world, and you mix it with the sort of the roundness of the Korg world, and you have something very lovely and juicy and fat. Obviously the Pro 1 has got it's sort of duophonic mode, so we're just hearing sort of the three voices really. Well, I suppose we're hearing four because the K2's got two oscillators, right? But yeah, it's, you know, in lead mode, very nice, and very nice for sort of rounding out a particularly fizzy sounding synth. I'll wrap the video up. Thanks for watching, and thanks for watching, you know, my first video about the K2. I think there's loads of scope for exploring this, so putting it through some pedals, some reverb would be interesting. I want to test, I don't think I've done this yet, analog, bit of analog delay. I've got an old Marshall reverb pedal there as well that I want to test. I do just also want to record some of my stems onto tape and then back into Reaper to listen to that. But we'll call this video a day. So yeah, in conclusion, K2, I think this sounds pretty good. Don't know what the pricing is now. I don't know whether the Andertons that were selling this for like £170. I don't know whether they've shifted all those now and it'll eventually go up in price. Don't know. Anyway, any questions down below? Bye bye.